Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome to another video on my channel, Hairliciously. If you guys are new to the channel, please make sure to subscribe so that you guys are updated on hair loss and hair transplant topics, as well as updates on current hair loss treatments in the pipelines. And visit my website at HAIRLICIOUSLY.com to purchase your microneedling device, which is scientifically proven to stimulate hair growth, my low-level laser therapy cap, DHT blocking shampoo, conditioner, and serum, hair growth vitamins, and a few other products to help those who are losing hair. So a few days ago, I was surfing on YouTube, just looking for anything interesting pertaining to hair loss or hair transplant videos, and I came across one that really caught my attention and I thought that I'd share with you guys. Unfortunately, the video did not come with English subs, so I can't go over what was said in the video, but basically it featured a Pakistani hair transplant doctor who goes by the name Dr. Habib, who presented a patient that had undergone a hair transplant, probably one of the worst hair transplants that I've ever seen. When we, typically talk about a bad hair transplant, it's usually due to either, things like poor density, or the grafts weren't in the proper direction, or maybe there was a mixture of multi-grafts in the hairline. It's usually something moderate along those lines, which technically can be fixed with a subsequent hair transplant. Very rarely do we actually come across a patient who had extensive necrosis as a side effect from a horrific hair transplant. This isn't even something that we would even fathom about right after receiving hair transplant, at least not if you, went to a good reputable doctor. And surely never even came to my mind when I had both of my hair transplants. But as evident as this video will show, this is something that can very likely happen, especially if you guys do not go to a reputable hair transplant clinic and take the necessary aftercare measures to ensure the best outcome following a hair transplant. So let's go and take a closer look at the patient's scalp. Man, this is just really, really bad. If you guys have no idea what you guys are looking at, this is a scalp of someone that was basically butchered at the hands of an incompetent doctor, someone who was not experienced. I'm guessing this person probably got his transplant in Pakistan, and places like Pakistan, you can probably get a few thousand grafts for really cheap, maybe for a few $100. Most of the population is living in poverty. A large part of the economy is still either undocumented or they have not made that transition to modern practices. But there's nothing wrong with getting it done in Pakistan, but I think it's pretty safe to say that most people who are either residing in the US, Canada, or Europe wouldn't even consider getting a hair transplant in, especially in Pakistan. I'm sure that there's a lot of reputable doctors and a lot of good clinics that do a lot of great work. But given that it is still a developing world country that's filled with structural problems, social turmoil, political instability, and, more importantly, due to, potential terrorism and sectarian violence, most people are not going to think twice about going to Pakistan, let alone, getting a hair transplant. Their medical standards also likely aren't as up to par as it is like in the US or Korea or Turkey or Europe. Some people also kind of have that same mentality when it comes to Turkey. But Turkey, at least in Istanbul, is actually relatively safe, and it is one of the top hair transplant destinations in the world. Anyway, let's go back to the video. All of that black and brownish regions on the mid-scalp and parts on the frontal hairline that you guys see is all dead scalp tissue, and this is due to something known as necrosis. It's like something that you guys would see out of like a horror movie, and the worst part about this is that all of that black necrosis affected areas on the scalp are not usually going to regrow hair, regardless of whether you've already had existing hair or transplanted hairs. So not only have you wasted a lot of your hard-earned money on a failed hair transplant, most, if not all of the implanted grafts are not going to grow. You're going to be left with a pretty hideous looking scar on the top of your scalp, and you will look worse than you started off with. And given the extent of the hair loss on this guy, already in the first place, he likely was not even a good candidate to begin with, at least not according to, like the hairline design that he has in the video. He was probably more towards like a Nord 5, Nord 6, maybe even a Nord 7, given the visible horseshoe pattern on his head. And since a bunch of the grafts were implanted into the mid-scalp and the hairline, he probably was suffering from a heavy, degree of hair loss. The density also looks pretty bad, especially if you guys look kind of towards the outer crown area on the top. You can see how spaced some of the implanted grafts are, and you can see an obvious lack of transition from where the bald areas began and where the grafts were implanted. This is really sad to see because I'm pretty sure that this doctor had promised this guy, you know, a full head of hair, only to look worse than someone who didn't even have hair in the first place. What this guy needed was density, and it looks like the necrosis was caused by several possible factors. One of the most common causes of scalp necrosis that we see after hair transplant is due to overpacking. You know, as dense as we want the hair transplant to be, packing too many grafts into the recipient area can cause too much trauma to, you know, the recipient's scalp, and therefore it can cause tissue death. It can also disrupt the blood flow to regions on the scalp, which is starved of the blood's nourishing nutrients. And another common cause is infection. If it's especially you know, left untreated, it can spread like wildfire and cause necrosis on surrounding areas. And one of the reasons why infections occur is due to inexperienced doctors who typically make the incisions too deep, and this can potentially cause infections to arise, and it can also lead to things like excessive bruising, which causes the tissue to become necrotic as the blood pools beneath the skin. Now, people who are also at high risk of necrosis include smokers, you know, long-term smokers, people who are diabetics, people with cardiovascular issues. Basically, anybody whose blood supply can be compromised are all at risk. So the only way to really resolve necrosis is by removing the affected areas. The next video is pretty graphic, and viewer discretion is highly advised. This here illustrates how the necrotic skin has to be removed, basically leaving the scalp with a big hole in the top. And I highly doubt that this person will even have hair that is going to grow back after the hair transplant. There's just no way. And, you know, just like literally, I just feel so bad for this guy because he already had to deal with hair loss in the first place. And now he's basically lost a whole chunk of his scalp. And I just can't imagine something like that happening to me, and just trying to imagine what is going on, you know, in his head. No pun intended. Luckily, he was able to recover from this. I'm not sure if he had some type of, you know, skin graft or if healthy new tissue had grown in its place. But either way, he's left with this nasty looking scar on top of his scalp that likely is not going to grow back hair. And there's no real way to disguise this. So overall, you know, this guy was in a very unfortunate position to go through something like this. And like I said, I just can't imagine what I would even do if this were to happen in my shoes. Things like this are rare after hair transplant, but they do occur, and it just emphasizes the importance of research and going to a reputable clinic. By doing proper research and following aftercare instructions after procedure, you'll never have to worry about, you know, things like this. So I do hold an online consultation through Skype or FaceTime. A lot of my subscribers who have considered getting a hair transplant later down the road actually had consultations with me and found it to be informative. We basically discuss anything from, you know, anything pertaining to hair transplants, treatment, you know, recommendations, doctor recommendations, and different parts of the world, and just about anything. So if you guys are interested, you guys can visit my website, hairliciously.com. There is a consultation tab you can check out to book your consultation with me. But hopefully this video has been eye-opening and educational. Let me know your thoughts on this. Leave me some comments in the comment section below. If you guys have any questions, you guys can reach me via email at hairliciously@gmail.com, or you can reach me through some of my social media platforms at hairliciously. Thanks for watching, guys, and I will talk to you guys in my next video. Take care.